Welcome to the weekly summary of Catapult Your Business, where we answer one question at a time to help catapult business owners to the next stage of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm really excited to slow down and talk about what this week's guest was all about. I got a chance to meet with Eric Elkins. He was the CEO and chief strategist of Wide Focus Social Media. You guessed it, they help you with your social media, both organic and paid, and they do a great job. They've been a client of ours for almost 4 years, worked with multiple of our advisors, and has just really had some amazing breakout scale and success over those 4 years. And we've been really excited to partner. They actually just hit their 15-year anniversary. And he brought the most engaging conversation. And what that question was is, how do we create an incentive-based pay structure to help tie in for productivity, happiness, lacking burnout? And how do we bring that to the table in a business where it's not all just about generating more revenue? How do we do that to tie them in and create more satisfaction, for these employees? And it was just so cool to hear his perspective as he thought about how could it be equitable? How could he structure it in a way that would mean future growth for the company, protect the bank account, but also hopefully help his people make even more and more money well above and beyond what's out there in market. And so it was definitely a great conversation. A couple highlights and footnotes here of what we got into. We talked about when we build out this incentive comp plan, you go through these kind of following steps. One, you go figure out what is the OTE, the on-target earnings that you want this person to earn. What is that range? By looking out in the marketplace, even putting out some ads to figure it out. Number two, then you break down what are the KPIs. Again, we talked about 3 to 4 is really the max amount of anything that a person on your team should be able to work towards. You need to keep it simple and guided. And we talked about the value of not moving the goalposts on those KPIs. Number 3, once you figure out which KPIs you're going to drive to, then figure out the frequency of pay. Do they make enough to where you can put some of it on the back end to help support retention, or do you need to have monthly or quarterly incentives to help make sure there's enough pay there to help support their lifestyle? That's a decision by role you're going to have to work through, and depending on how you structure it with the incentive. And the fourth and final step is how you structure that incentive. And we talked about how to create cliffs and allow there to be, when there's an expense budget for labor, if you leave that percentage, let's say you want to hit 50% and they hit 46%, let them take 4% of the business. And as that scales, that really creates the incentive to take on more and more and more for the organization to hit these capacity outputs. So overall, it was just an extremely engaging conversation that we got to dive into. And after we worked through that initial compensation structure and how to design that for each role, we then were able to actually slow down and just look at to say, how do you go approach your team on this? And we slowed down and we talked about the buy-in equation. This concept that says, what's the quality of the idea times the buy-in of your team's idea equals the execution of idea. And although you may be a 10 for 10 on your idea, it's the best idea you could bring to the business. If your team only sees that as a 2 or a 3 for their buy-in, you're going to get an execution of 30%, 10 times 3, 30%. But in the event that you let them come up with the idea, let them pick the KPIs and help kind of guide them there, let them pick the goalposts that they're measured on and let them have a say in this conversation, you will ultimately create the environment where maybe they're a 7, 8, or 9 out of 10 on their buy-in. And maybe the ideas are only 6 or 7 compared to, maybe the 10. But that execution is going to be 60 to 70% versus that, 20 to 30%. So ensuring you let your team have buy-in will always allow you to scale faster past yourself as you're trying to create growth within your company. And I think this is one of the most important topics that not a lot of people are talking about. How do you create the incentive pay to align long-term incentives for your team so that they avoid burnout, can be as productive as possible, as happy as possible, and more importantly, help the company grow and thrive? Has to happen these days. This is what the new generations expect. So thanks for joining us on our journey. Encourage you to check out the full episode and subscribe. Also, please know if you want help building out your compensation structure, reach out to Cultivate. We'd love to slow down and have a conversation with you and give you a couple free hours to work through that. But until next time, we'll see you one question at a time as we help you catapult your business. Thanks all.